I will tell you a funny story without going into too much detail. So Noah got baptized. He's smiling. He's like, Noah got baptized about 4 months ago at Elam Grace, and that was pretty awesome. But the one thing, first of all, just some history on Noah, since he's going to be talking to you. Noah's diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome about the age of 12, which just means he's this genius that just maneuvers through our world any way he wants to. And that has not changed. And then the other part about it is when you have a stroke, those filters are just, they're not there quite the same way, right?
What little filters there were.
Yeah, that's right. So right before we're getting ready to go for the baptism, Noah found a rather inappropriate post on Facebook that he could not stop laughing about. And I mean, he couldn't even tell me about it because he couldn't stop laughing. And this happens a lot. And so he finally spit it out, and then it was stuck in his head. We're driving to Elam Grace, and he's still laughing, and it's very inappropriate material.
You can't share it?
And I am praying.
Is this the story you told me not to say?
I'm not going to say it. Anyway, we're driving to Elam Grace, and I'm like, please. And so anyway, we get there, and I'm sitting in the front row. He's standing in line next to Rick, because Rick got baptized the same night. And he's standing in line. I'm like, Father, please. You let me dance. Come on, right? I was like, just, because I had no idea what he was going to say. And then when Pastor Bill asked him about, and handed him the mic and asked him about the baptism, he said, shared about getting diagnosed with end-stage renal disease in 2015 and the heart attack he had in 2016. Nothing about any recent events. And I was first of all praising his name, but I was puzzled, and I asked God, I said, why wasn't he talking about the stroke, the stuff that just happened months before? And he said, because that is when he started his healing. And that just blew my mind away. And so this has been an amazing transformation. And if you don't believe in the power of prayer, I'm going to tell you, the fact that Noah's here today is a testimony, even without him saying anything. So,
there's another microphone on the top of the.
I don't think that works.
okay.
It works.
All right. Well, we'll see how sharing goes, and if he doesn't want to share, then I'll grab the other one. He'll do most of the talking. All right. So we're gonna pray, and we'll get started. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for being Noah's mom more than anything, Lord. And thank you for this opportunity. This is a day I never thought I'd see. Lord, I just ask for your spirit to flow through him. Let there be an anointing on this testimony, and let your name be glorified here today. Let people walk away knowing that you are an amazing Father to all of us. Thank you so much. And Lord, bring to mind everything you want discussed here. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I'm going to give you this.
Slide that table.
Say something.
Be careful of the juices, though.
Okay. All right. And once again, anybody, if you guys have, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to be coming from this horrific background of addiction or anything. Anybody's testimony will minister to people. Anybody. So please don't lose sight of that. Because if there's no testimony, well, there's no fruit. We're just not going to do anything. Why not, guys? All right. So, I'm going to actually... Yes, you would. I'm going to just kind of do an interview and prompt, and he's going to talk, okay? You're going to hold this up. Yeah, the microphone. All right, so Noah, tell us about your life before you had renal failure. This was not how we rehearsed it.
Well,
Is it his microphone on?
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can tell because it's kind of making some noise. Wait.
Here,
Oh, it goes the other way.
got it?
Hello?
Here,
Push it up.
just hold that one.
Hello?
There you go. Release that one.
Hello.
Okay, the question was, what was your life like before you had end-stage renal failure?
Well, I didn't really take care of myself very much. I was really angry all the time, and I don't know, I'd say I was mildly depressed, but mostly just really angry all the time. Seriously, all the time too. And I didn't enjoy my life the way I do now. And since I've had a stroke, I even find myself, literally, I just laugh until I cry, until I need to take my glasses off. And then I forget what joke I was telling. That's even funnier, so I laugh even more at that.
No, that's true.
That's really like my whole life now is just laughing at stuff, usually really stupid stuff.
So, November 18th, 2015, I'm gonna give I'll give a little history. Because first of all, when Noah was talking about his life before, he didn't want really me involved in his life. He was living in Phoenix with his girlfriend Giselle, and I had not seen him in a long, long time. And they ended up homeless because they were gonna go doing overseas missions, and it kind of fell through. And they came to Victory, and that was the first time I saw him, was in October of 2015. And then my friend Vita, who was on our board and very active in the ministry, noticed he had a lot of edema in his feet. And so she said something, and we took us a month to get him to the hospital where we found out he was in end-stage renal disease. So keep in mind, this kid was never in a hospital in his life, ever. One time when he was a little kid, he banged his head, he went down the stairs, and we were in the waiting room so long. If you've ever been to Oswego Hospital, sorry if you work there, I'm not trying to be offensive. We were in the waiting room so long with him and Danny and Dylan bouncing off the walls, his brothers, and we're like, we're just gonna go. So we did. After about 8 hours, it was clear he was just fine. So that was his experience with hospitals. So before end-stage renal failure.
What about the time I spoke?
That's where, no, that's Danny.
It was me. I fell down the stairs.
Right, we just talked about that. That's fine. That's fine. You went home. You didn't actually go in. You were in the waiting. They took too long, and you were in the waiting room playing and they didn't even make me pay for it. So it's good.
Well, I hope so. You didn't really do anything, but you owe us now.
So tell everybody when you had renal failure. Tell what was that like?
What do you mean, what was it like?
Well, I mean, because all of a sudden now you're hospital, you're dialysis, you're in the hospital every month, like almost.
Well, yeah, I used to take a horrible care of myself because I didn't really care. I didn't really see any way out to be in a better life than I am now. I am healthier than I've ever been before. Quite frankly, because before I had a stroke, a massive hemorrhagic stroke, because I had 135 pounds of extra fluid on my body. And it was so bad that, like I said, I had a stroke. And my neurologist said, make peace with your son, he's never gonna survive this. Even if by some miracle he survives, he's never going to use the left side of his body, like I'm holding this mic with it, or walk again. And I can't walk.
Wow. Yeah. So once he had the diagnosis of end-stage renal disease, he had to change how he ate. He had to go to dialysis 3 times a week, which he still does. But it was very difficult for him to be compliant with treatment, all the medication. He was on tons of medication.
Yeah, a lot of it was hard because I wasn't really strong enough to walk or anything. I was discharged very early after my diagnosis. I was almost like the day after I got out of a coma. I wasn't even strong enough to stand. I weighed about 136 pounds. I ended up missing dialysis probably about 14 times in a row because the cab never bothered to come inside to check. They just pull up, wait 5 minutes, and leave and say I skipped. I just didn't want to go to dialysis. I ended up dying and having a heart attack twice.
Actually, he ended up having a heart attack and died. Just let's put that you can't be the only one getting all the laughs here.
Hey, it was funnier now than it was then.
Yes, oh my gosh, yes. truly. Thank you, Bill, for that summer. Bringing us back.
Keeping everyone grounded here.
So, anything else you want to add to that?
Shocking to see.
It's like bad parents, everyone's grounded.
So this went on for so in 2016 was the heart attack that he was talking about. It was awful, and we were at that point when I got to Oswego Hospital. They they brought me right to the chapel, and his friend Ree, who was trying, she didn't have any way to really get a hold of us. When she finally found us, my dear friends Fred and Nikki took me there, and the one thing about the end-stage renal disease happened because of what they think was E. coli poisoning. That went unchecked, and he developed something called HUS, which is where your blood actually forms your body forms antibodies and fights your red blood cells. So I felt like Mother of the Year, when I brought him into I finally got him to go to the hospital for the end-stage renal. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I didn't know he was in end-stage renal failure. I had no idea, because I had just gotten reintroduced to him in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And they're looking at me like, this kid has no blood going through him, because most of his red blood, he had to have mega transfusions. He had hardly any blood in him at all. They couldn't believe he was alive. And so that was a crazy time. So the heart attack happened in 2016, and that was really tough. That was the next time of them saying, he's not going to make it, prepare yourself. It was a massive snowstorm. They wanted to airlift him to Syracuse, and they couldn't because the weather was too bad. So we're following the ambulance through a massive storm, and I'm going to tell you, we were praying, and we're looking at triple Doppler, and it's massive storm everywhere, and we're driving, and it's all clear all the way to the hospital from Fulton through. So it was just crazy. So another time I'm sitting there waiting for him to die, and they said they kept him alive, and they put him in this really ice cold, what is that called? The chamber thing they put you in?
Yeah, cryogenic chambers.
Or is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Hyperbaric, is that? Or, okay.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, they said Noah will be okay. He was going to live, but he probably would have, because he had died for 8 minutes or 12 minutes, that he probably was not going to have much cognitive functioning. And he came back just like he left. Okay? So after that heart attack, 2016, and then you went on, and how were things then? Anything to add about that?
I remember when I had a heart attack, I got really scared because I thought, my heart stopped, I'm going to die. And then God told me, those who try to save themselves will die, but those who give up their life for my sake will have everlasting life. And I knew in that moment God told me that I'm not going to die. So I wasn't scared. I actually was so calm about it. When I told my friend Jimmy my heart stopped and I'm going to die and he could call the ambulance, he thought I was joking. He didn't believe me at all because I was completely calm and collected about it. Because God told me I was going to be fine. I believed it. And quite frankly, I did survive. And so it's not even like I was wrong to believe it because it happened.
You were right to believe it. You were just unconscious, so you couldn't tell me. That's all.
Oh yeah. But that's how I feel about a lot of things with atheism. If I'm wrong about Christianity, you will not be here to tell me you told me so. Just saying. You will never ever get to say, told you God's not real. We're dead. Nothing happens. That's it. Cool. I lived a great life. You lived a miserable one. Your whole life. You spent your whole life hating Christians. Quite frankly, that sucks. At least I enjoy my life.
Yeah.
And I do. I honestly, like I said, I find myself spending a lot of time laughing myself until I'm in tears and need to take off my glasses over usually something so dumb. By the time I'm done laughing, I forgot what I was even talking about.
You take everyone with you laughing so hard.
I know, I love doing that.
When did you know that God was real after that? You started giving your life to God?
I always knew he was real. I never thought I loved God as much as I do now.
Amen.
Because I always knew him, but it kind of was like a, what ways does this benefit me kind of thing. And I was a lukewarm Christian where now I couldn't possibly believe God isn't real. I've survived so much stuff and gone through so much stuff that there's honestly no way I can't say that I love Jesus Christ. There's no way at all. Absolutely not. I actually think it's completely ludicrous to say there is no God. Because that sounds crazy to me. Because I've experienced it. Through experience, I mean, it's a fact to me. It doesn't feel in any way like I have to have faith or believe. Because it's not a mystery. I know it for certain.
So, what's that? Yes, Mark?
Yeah. So, Noah, what do you want to do in the future? What's your plan? What's your goal? What do you think the Lord is calling you to do now that He spared your life this many times and will probably continue to do so?
Not entirely certain, but what? Oh yeah, sorry. Probably not entirely certain, but something that glorifies my mom. I was thinking of doing camping videos. I wanted to do that.
With MREs?
No, not with MREs, just food that my mom makes.
He wants to camp in my backyard and do videos
Isn't that awesome?
of me bringing him food.
That and 7-finger cats work.
I love the 7-finger kitty.
And he does continue to evangelize and everything, so, I'm gonna take us back to On Track. So, renal failure 2015, a lot of missed dialysis appointments, a lot of hospitalizations. Upstate got to a point where their care was no longer great because they didn't think he cared enough about himself. And he would go in, and the first thing they'd say to him, how many dialysis appointments did you miss? I mean, they got nasty, and it was really hard to advocate for him because he really didn't want me in that role at all, okay? He really did not. And so, but he ended up going to Krause, and they took good care of him. Krause was really terrific. And honestly, I think if he was at Upstate, we would not be sitting here today. And it's not because they're bad people or anything. It's just very hard to care for somebody when you believe in your mind they're not caring at all for themselves, even though you've sworn an oath to do that. Angela?
And God continues to heal him even after his high blood pressure. He's taking medication. What about that?
I mean, now I only take, I used to take probably about 9 blood pressure medicines a day, and I'm down to
0.
1.
Yeah,
Because the other one's actually for stomach acid.
Yep. So what happened? Noah was living his life. He was not taking his meds regularly. He was just doing his stuff. January 23rd of last year, they called me at 4 in the morning at Krause, and I'll tell you, this is stuff that no parent ever wants to hear. But according to the sources there, the people that were with him, he had a massive headache, managed to call 911, managed to walk all the way down the stairs to meet the ambulance from in his apartment building from the 4th floor. So he probably really had most of the stroke on the way to the hospital. And it was a massive stroke. And it was probably right in the back of his head there. And they, at that point, and this was full on COVID, there were no visitors allowed, nothing. They were trying to get a hold of me to be able to perform some, they needed to drain the area and stuff, so, not yet. And so they got a hold of me. I talk about helpless, you can't go to the hospital. I'm not alone in having that experience, it's rather awful. And so it was just a waiting game. And then what happened is the doctor actually took his hand one day. They were trying to let him out from the anesthesia. They had tubes coming out of him, draining stuff. put it down. So they were trying to see if Noah, out of sedation a bit, could understand what was going on. So they would tell him to squeeze your hand, and they would ask questions, and he was responsive.
Amen.
So that's all I needed. Now, the day before that, they were telling me to round up the family, and they're going to let us go in, and we should really be prepared, say our goodbyes, right? I now have heard this. Now this is time 3, and so we're all everybody's waiting. All the family across the country, wherever they are, they're all waiting. And I posted every moment there was an update on Facebook, because I knew that everybody needed a prayer, and I know there were people praying around the world, and I know it changed everything. And honestly, if I could get Dr. Padolino, his neurosurgeon, here to tell you that, and he is not a believing man, but he would tell you, because he has no account for how Noah survived that. So yeah, we went through a rather interesting time, and they asked me politely if I wanted to consider just comfort care, and really let me know I should not have any expectations. But that's not me, and that's not my relationship with him. And in spite of the awful care he took of himself, I know one thing: he did not want to die. I know that. And so I think that I just said no. I said, no, we're just going to see where this takes us. And he was pretty okay. Do you remember those early days in Kraus? We did have some fun times when we finally could go in and visit. One of the things that he had trouble with is orienting his sensory stuff. So I have a Pikachu hat. If most of you know, I have a Pikachu hat. When I got to go in and visit, I'm sitting in there with a Pikachu hat, and his brother Dylan is on speakerphone from Portland. And Noah was quite sure he was sitting with Pikachu, and I was on the phone because his brain couldn't quite do that. So we made sure that the staff all knew that. Now here's something really interesting I'm going to share. So
He starts talking to Pikachu.
So yeah, he had some moments of delusion. One time I called, he was watching some cooking show, and he told me he was making some kind of souffle or something for me.
Watching the Great British Baking Show.
Right.
90% chance that's what it was.
So we had that, and it was just like, these sensory issues that made for some interesting conversations. So what was to happen next? Now this was after about a month and a half, and he was under full supervision because he kept trying to pull the tubes out of the back of his head. Right? That freaks me out a little. So he had these little mittens on, and they always had to keep that because that was draining. So they're now ready to put him in rehab. And they were talking about this place called Sunnyview in Schenectady, and I'm like, no, I want him close to home. So Upstate has a rehab place. So they were getting ready to send him to Upstate, and I won that advocacy thing. But I'll tell you, God had other plans. I mean, he really did. And so Noah, it was Friday, just get through the weekend. Monday he was going. The only thing with Upstate is because he needed, he had somebody sitting with him, so he didn't pull the tubes out. They had to get rid of that person. He could not have that kind of supervision to go into the Upstate program. So they got rid of that person, and it was kind of a weird thing. He was going to dialysis, or just completed dialysis. He was on the phone with his Aunt Susie, telling her that he had this really severe headache. This was Monday. Apparently he had fallen, and he ended up having a massive brain bleed, as bad as the first stroke. They called it a brain bleed, but it actually was just as severe as the stroke, in the same place. And at that point, and this is crazy, because Dr. Padolino, meanwhile, is telling me he's giddy, like he knew some miracle happened. There was no reason for Noah to be alive. And so what he said this time, it's almost like he got vindicated, and he goes, I have to do a craniectomy because we can't put contrast dye in him to see if there's lesions because he is an end-stage renal failure. So So we have to do this craniectomy, and where I have to go, he goes, he will not have any use of the left side of his body. I've done a lot of these. You're not going to get a miracle again. Okay? He said these words to me. I know, it's so fun to be on this side of the story, right? And so meanwhile, he's intubated because they were trying to keep him, so not sedated where he was awake, but they ended up intubating him again. And so then the nurse practitioner calls me. I didn't realize I had so much part in this, but you didn't know that you were unconscious, so I guess. And she really is telling me, pretty much, let us pull the plug now while he's anesthetized, while he is sleeping. And that there's no hope for him to come back, okay? And what I said, and I'll tell you, it took so much out of me, but we've been praying. I know I wasn't even praying as much as some of the people that were praying for him. I gotta tell you, because I was just so overwhelmed by this, as he was. And I said, I'll tell you guys what, if you wanna wake him up, let's see how he's doing, and then we'll make that decision. And that's all I said. So that was the end of that part. They did the squeezing test, and he was unresponsive. So they made it a point to tell me that. Then they got him out of anesthesia, and I went to go visit him, because now I can visit still. And
This was during COVID too.
this was during COVID too, yes. And anyway, he's sitting in there on his bed talking to me, holding a neck rope shake in his left hand, drinking it in the side of his body that doesn't work. And he had full use. At least from everything anyone could tell, the whole upper part of his body, the left side, there was nothing wrong with it.
Oh, wow.
Not even a little.
Oh, my
So, So, and then the next chapter was Sunnyview. The nurse got on the phone, she's like, we're taking him to Sunnyview for rehab. He came out of this okay, he was still quite delusional, still struggling. He actually thought he was fighting Japan a lot of the time.
I got updates. Regularly, he called me and would tell me where he was in the war and the battles and stuff like that.
As long as I won, I don't care.
Yeah.
He won. Yeah, he did.
So yes, so that was quite fun. So when I'm like, no, I want upstate, she said, no, you don't. She goes, Sunnyview is one of the best stroke rehab facilities in the nation, and sent me information, and it was. And I am so glad that he went there. One of the things that did happen is Noah's vision was drastically affected. He is as close to blind as, even though he has the glasses, and he can see a lot of things. If things are moving, he cannot really make them out. He has a lot of vision issues, and when he first had when he first was in rehab, he had something called left neglect. And I'll tell you, this was kind of fun.
Can you explain what that is?
Yes, so he could not see out of the left side of either of his eyes. Okay, so in the right eye, it meant that the right side of the left eye could see for it, but on this side there was nothing there. So his brain didn't know that there was a world there at all.
Oh, wow.
His brain didn't understand anything was there. So we always made sure, when Angela sent him this huge thing of chocolates at Sunnyview, he put it on his left side, because it didn't exist there, else they'd be gone in a day. No problem, no. Yeah, the whole time.
There might even be some left.
Angela made sure there wasn't, I checked.
So they did, and he was also 136 pounds or 137 pounds after being intubated.
135.
Okay. All right.
But that's the same amount of weight that used to sit on his chest.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. When I had the stroke, I was 135 pounds per demo overweight.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, he could barely walk. He couldn't even wear slippers.
Yeah,
Before
I
the
couldn't
stroke.
even wear. I wasn't even wearing socks.
Yeah.
And that was just for the difficulty of putting shoes on after I put the socks on.
No, look at him.
Yeah, he had
No
shoes
way.
on. He went like 2 years without wearing shoes. The Pontiac, because they have policies of HUD housing, and you have to have something on your feet, they had the little paper slippers like you get in the hospital, because that was all he could wear. Which it made it very tough going to dialysis and going outside in the winters. He could not get anything on his feet at all. So,
And now he
they were
goes to the gym.
that big around. Yep, now he has a membership to Planet Fitness.
Wow.
He is determined. So,
Right.
and Sunnyview was an incredible, what they did for him, I'll tell you, if you ever have a family member that ever has a stroke, please consider that option if that is given.
Whereabouts
Karen.
is that?
That is in Schenectady, and that place is incredible. I could not believe. That was the most excellent care I've ever seen anyone get. It was humbling. It was amazing how well they cared for him, and how they kept the family involved. Go on, Noah. What you
Well, I
want to
was
say?
laughing. I'm like, no, this is a completely normal occurrence, Mom. Just crying and laughing. I have something called Cotard's delusion, and that's where I essentially came so close to dying, my brain thinks I should have died. I'm supposed to be dead, and everyone thought I should be dead, and I'm not. And it's kind of like a Final Destination effect where you think life is gonna swing back and kill you. But that's really, because I came so close, unbelievably close to dying, that it feels like I'm supposed to be dead. And it kind of at times feels that way, like something's gonna happen and correct itself.
But God cured not only the blood pressure issue, also your smoking, right? You'd quit smoking finally.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yes,
Easily.
that was
It couldn't have possibly been easier.
Yep, so in the 5 years after not going to dialysis and through the end-stage renal failure, he smoked. And he had pulmonary edema, so he always had a lot of fluid in his lungs.
What's that?
Just like, it's kind of like a pneumonia.
Oh,
You
okay.
just have tons of fluid. And so he would wake up in the morning, light up a cigarette, and it was like, it's horrifying to listen to it. It was just awful.
out of a pipe.
Yeah,
Yep,
because I
It
wasn't
wasn't
smoking
cigarette, it
cigarettes.
was
It was even
tobacco.
worse, realistically.
so,
Then he couldn't quit, no matter what he tried.
yep,
I know.
and he did. He had Chantix there, everything.
God just
Oh.
removed the urge to smoke, and I quit immediately. And I've had no effort at all. I haven't had to try one bit. It's been easy. And I don't even like cigarettes. They're repulsive to me now.
So 6 weeks in a coma, just so you know, if you guys are looking for a way to quit.
This 6-week program is guaranteed.
Go ahead, Karen.
Didn't his cardiologist say he had heart problems previously?
Yes.
An enlarged heart.
Yeah, talk about
Yes.
that.
Well, my ejection fraction, which is the pressure that your body, oh yeah, I can turn this microphone. Yeah, the pressure, your ejection fraction is the pressure your body expels blood through the chambers in your heart. And my ejection fraction was messed up because I have what's called an enlarged heart. That's supposed to be a completely incurable permanent damage. It's kind of like your heart having stretch marks.
Oh, wow.
And
They
that
gave him 5 years to live.
they told me I have no way to recover. I'm completely screwed. And then they told me I have no enlarged heart anymore.
Well, and basically, so after the stroke, let's talk a little bit about this, because this is how God's greatness just continues. He came home with 11 different pill bottles. Okay, that was not even, it was like my head was whirling. I was always afraid I was going to give him the wrong stuff, right? And what ended up happening is that we noticed his blood pressure, what was it? Give me a blood pressure typical when you were before the stroke.
Like 220 over 125.
Yeah. And he didn't take his meds unless he felt, it felt funny to him. But we started noticing that the blood pressure was going down and down. In fact, dialysis calls and said, don't give him any meds before dialysis because his blood pressure is getting too low. And we're like, what?
Yeah,
And
now it's getting to like 90 over 50.
he ended up getting hospitalized twice since the stroke, since he'd been home. He got home from Sunnyview at the end of April of 2021. And since then, he was hospitalized twice. One time his blood pressure was 55 over 36.
Wow.
And so, and then there were 2 times where it really had gotten low. And I told Dr. Grady, who's his new cardiologist since the stroke, I'm like,
awesome.
he is awesome.
He's my doctor.
I said, you gotta get him, I said, you gotta do something, and so I said, I need parameters, I just am not gonna give it to him. And he was like, not really willing to change things, because if you look at Noah's history, Noah has some blood pressure issues, right? And I said, fine, I'm gonna give him the meds, but I'm coming to your waiting room, we're gonna sit there for 5 hours, so you can deal with it, right? And then he gave parameters, and I'll tell you what, he hasn't had to take any of the actual active blood pressure meds in months. They did an echo, and Dr. Grady called me on my cell phone and said his heart is normal, not just even fine. They were saying it's normal, it's functioning normal after a heart attack, after end-stage renal disease, after high blood pressure, after stroke and a brain bleed, that his heart is functioning normally. And that is profound.
Somebody forgot to tell Noah he couldn't do this.
I know.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And so here we are now, right?
No, you don't have anything to
Oh, we
say.
did have a stroke party on January 23rd of this year.
He's gonna start designing t-shirts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Noah has a really racy sense of humor. Like,
Like,
here, I'll give you some examples. One of his t-shirts says, Little Seizures Pizza, and it's like
I
the
love
pizza.
that.
And the toppings are flopping all over the place.
I love
That would sell.
I know.
That would sell.
So Noah
And
has that
Caesar
little shock
salad.
factor thing going on.
Right there.
I did get him a t-shirt for Christmas that said, I had a stroke, what's your excuse? So, but that's pretty much it, right now.
I was just thinking about, I really wanted for the stroke party, I wanted to do a stroke cake, which is just gonna be a cake mashed up.
No, we did that.
Stroke cake.
No, did we mash up his cake?
Yeah.
We did, yeah.
Oh.
It was a red velvet cake.
Mashed cake.
Yeah, it had cream cheese frosting, some bread for blood for stroke, yeah.
Blood for stroke, can't have a stroke without bleeding. It's gotta make things worse.
And we do joke about this stuff a lot. Some people may find this really offensive, but the fact is, we know this is a very serious thing.
And I'm a very offensive
But-
person. Not sure what to say there.
Everybody's got a talent.
Yeah.
Mine is offending people.
So it is really terrific though to have my son. And right now, I've never had such a good relationship with Noah. I've never had.
I don't know, I haven't had as good of a relationship with my mom, and that's actually one of the best things about all of it.
I agree. This
You
is
miss
all
her
the
when she
thing.
leaves the door.
Yeah, no, and it never happened before. Half the time I was happy to get away from her.
Or slam the door.
So now you take her phone and hide it, so she has to come back to say hello and get
I
away
just
again.
forget that.
No,
right?
yeah, I just expect her to forget and come walking
Yeah.
back inside. And just, forgot my keys, forgot my phone.
And I only take the stairs in the
And
building.
he's-
Go ahead, Debbie.
No, can I ask you a question?
No.
Anyway, honey, I am a stroke victim also. I wanna know if you have bad days where you don't, the weather could be off for you, an off day type thing, or you don't sleep enough. Do you have anything like that?
Honestly, since I've had a stroke,
Mhm.
no.
No?
I've had, even my nutritionalist talked to me the other day.
Uh-huh.
They come visit me once a month.
Uh-huh.
They were incredibly shocked. All of my levels are perfect. They have never seen, my blood count is higher than most people's who don't even have kidney failure. And kidney failure shuts down your body's ability to produce blood cells. So that's entirely something done by medicine.
Right.
That, like mine, it's supposed to be your hemoglobin and hematocrit is supposed to be 13.2. Mine's 13.8.
Oh.
And I have kidney failure, so it literally, it used to be like 2.7. And that was like death defying. They were sitting there like telling me they weren't even gonna take me on to dialysis because they were scared. Because there was so little blood there, they were just gonna cause like a huge open space in there from it circulating, and that was gonna cause me to have a heart attack. And that's scary to me because, I mean, I have had seizures before,
Right.
and, oh, yeah.
Hey,
sorry, yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, see? Crap, what was I saying?
Yes, Mama. talking about seizures, son.
Have you had your seizures, dialysis?
Oh yeah, I had a seizure at dialysis, and it was, so I was taking some medicine. Depakote.
No.
Some pill you're not on anymore.
Yep.
I'm not on Depakote either.
You're right, I wouldn't let you, yeah, that's a whole other thing, we're not gonna talk about that.
But yeah, I had a seizure, and everybody kind of just walked to the other side of the room to pretend they didn't notice it. And that makes it terrifying, because I already know they're national average, because their whole clinic, all the clinics in the nation are reviewed, and my clinic has scored a 42 out of 100.
Wow.
Which, according to the national average, means they're a really crappy clinic.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt you for a minute, just to say, back to your thing. When Noah was talking about what was the syndrome about the deaf thing?
Co-stars.
Yes. He does not have some of the physical issues, but he will, he'll be having like 5 good days, and then he will have severe anxiety that he's gonna die. Like, he'll call me and be like, I can't go to dialysis today, I'm afraid I'm gonna have a seizure, I'm gonna die, or he'll be at my house, and then it goes away, but he does go through those kind of spells, and that's because of that. It's not often.
That's totally not because of that. That's because I really had a seizure.
I know, I understand that, but I'm on another subject. I'm sorry,
You didn't really get the same thing.
Okay.
We're still in the same place.
No, I was answering Debbie's question when you went off on the 42 score of dialysis. And Cancer Act next week.
Tell us about Apartment Kitty.
Hello, Apartment Kitty. So I paid $15 and I got a kitty who's a runt with 7 toes. And I love that. It's like my favorite kitty ever. Because 6 toes is supposed to be a sign of incest. In my case, it's not. So God wanted me to have a freaky kitty, and I didn't want it to be incestual.
You asked, Angela.
No, and he's the nicest cat ever. He really doesn't believe in violence. It's crazy. He's the kind of cat I want to get another cat just because he behaves so well around me.
I think his cat's schizophrenic. You pet it, it'll purr for like 30 seconds, and it'll start chomping on your hand.
It changes his mind.
But he loves Noah. Noah lays on a couch next to his door, and this cat will lay behind the door so you can't get in. And you have to move the cat.
That's because of David picking on him and teasing him.
So that's the thing. Okay, hang on, because Dee, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to know, I'm struggling right now and I'm starting to lose my faith, and I wanted to know what you could do to encourage me to get back on track and everything so I don't lose my faith and lose my life and everything that I really do believe in God, but I'm just having a really hard time with that right now. And I'm possibly on the road myself to having a stroke or a heart attack. I'm not in a really good situation right now. So what would you encourage me to try to work on and get better at?
Encourage yourself to see this as sort of a crossroads where you can make a choice to go a different way and not end up like me.
Right.
Because I have brain damage,
Right.
quite frankly. And I don't think you want to be in this position.
Absolutely not.
It's such a pain to forget things that I just said. It really is.
It is, I agree.
And it's a constant thing. And then randomly I'll remember other things, like when it comes to the scripture, I remember all of scripture all the time.
Okay.
And I remember tons of scriptures, but outside of that, I don't remember what I made for breakfast this
Right.
morning. At least I think. I might have. I did have broccoli, you're right. The broccoli came to pick me up. You know, microwave steamed broccoli.
Alright, wait, go ahead, Karen.
Hi, Gene.
Jan.
Stand
Bye, Jim.
Noah, did your kitten kind of set off an alarm?
When I was gone, yeah, because I remember that.
Yeah, when the kitten's by himself, when Noah's staying with me, there's little cords that are alarms in the building. We had to tape them up because the cat will set them off and the police would
They
show
taped
up.
up the fire alarm switch because the cat flipped the fire alarm switch.
Five
That's
times.
what
On the
happened.
movement, so he sat there and making the switch and set off the alarm.
Five times.
It just missed you.
So I think we'll wrap up. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
What's nice to you, it's nice to you, like cats, because, it's nice that you won't, like cats, because you had 9 lives already.
Amen.
You go, Ken.
Okay.
There's more than 9 lives.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your cat too, but you.
The cat too.
Yeah, that cat's on a
One of the one of the final things is that he can talk to anybody, anywhere, about how Jesus saved him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially
Share
on
his
buildings.
testimony.
Yeah, I've never been afraid to do that.
No.
Especially, like I said, now I see Jesus Christ as a factual thing. I don't in any way believe it as a belief. You can either choose to lie to yourself and say he's not real, but he's not just, I don't believe him. There's no way. I've experienced it way too many times. Like, especially that whole thing with my hemorrhagic stroke. My neurologist was hell-bent that I'm dead.
Wow.
And thought for sure, that's why he told them, make peace with your son, you're never gonna see him again. He put his professional opinion on that and got completely screwed because he was wrong.
He was happy to be wrong, don't.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted me to be dead, quite frankly.
He's also an excellent physician.
Yeah, he is.
He is
He is
top
very
of the
well.
line.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. A good physician staking his professional opinion on the matter was dead wrong.
That's because God interfered.
I know, God makes the rules.
Amen.
Right. All right. Is that good? And one more question. Dresden, right? Is that your name?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Did he have to get like defibrillator? Right? He had to get like that.
You had to get jump started.
Yeah.
How did it feel like when he came back?
I don't know. I died again. So I had another heart attack on the way to the hospital. They had to cool my body to stop it from burning up oxygen, so I wouldn't die as fast. But yeah, it didn't feel like anything. I died. I was quite frankly there to have any opinion of the matter.
You don't recall if you talked to Christ?
I didn't. I just died. I just blanked out and woke up at the hospital and went home. I was just like, I'm up, I'm hungry.
It wasn't quite that smooth.
Trust me, I'm not really that smooth about anything. I'm about as smooth as chunky peanut butter.
So we are pretty much out of time, but the next show, pretty much whenever. And I think we're gonna see more in Noah and some evangelism and some real support for people. And I think, God has really gifted him in that way. And Noah, I love you so much and thank you so much for taking this message.
We all love you, Noah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I love everybody. Except not Emilio.
Boom, there it is.
Unless you want to.
No more taking dialysis when I had a car.
Yeah, we've all, half of you here have taken him to dialysis at one point or another.
It's just easier to get them there now.
Does that mean no have to walk home now?
Yeah.
Is that the end?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's the end.